Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. I beg to move that a bill entitled "An Act to Provide for the Regulation and Control of Gaming and Betting and Matters Related thereto" be now read a second time. Madam Speaker, the matter we are dealing with is the bill as amended in the Senate, which we dealt with on Friday of last week and Monday of this week in the other place, where some amendments were made, amendments that improved the checks and balances in the bill. This matter has been before this Parliament, at least under this PNM administration, led by the Honourable Prime Minister, for almost 6 years. The previous administration, in May of 2015, just prior to the dissolution of the Parliament in June of 2015, in fact just a couple of days before, had debated and passed a bill that more or less is a mirror image of this bill with few differences, called the Gambling, Gaming and Control Bill. Because we in this government, this PNM administration, felt that the control of gambling and betting is so important, and because it is a known fact that Trinidad and Tobago is the only country in the world that has an unregulated but thriving gambling, casino gambling industry, we felt it was so important that rather than revisiting and reviewing and amending the bill that was debated and passed by the former UNC administration at the end of May 2015, we thought it appropriate, assuming, clearly foolishly now in hindsight, that the UNC would not oppose its own bill. We laid the same Gambling, Gaming and Betting Control Bill passed by the UNC in the House of Representatives, word for word, verbatim. We did not change a full stop, a semicolon, a word, a paragraph, nothing. Same bill. Having laid the same bill that was introduced and passed by the UNC in 2015, UNC immediately opposed it and therefore taught us a valuable lesson that there are no standards on that side. We then found ourselves having to send the bill to a joint select committee because it required a special majority because of certain enforcement procedures, and found ourselves in that joint select committee and another joint select committee for 4 years, Madam Speaker. During that 4-year period, we had numerous meetings of the Joint Select Committee, over 20. We had discussions and consultations with stakeholders, persons involved in the casino industry, persons involved in the amusement gaming industry, bar owners, casino owners, persons involved in the sale and distribution of gaming machines, côté ci, côté là, for almost 100 hours of consultations, almost 25 meetings, I'm told, of the Joint Select Committees. So we consulted ad infinitum. It is therefore ridiculous to see some of the commentary coming from the other side that we are trying to rush this legislation without consultation. I want to repeat that except for some improvements that have become necessary because of the evolution in the requirements for anti-money laundering and counter-terrorist financing and proliferation financing that have evolved over the last 6 years as a result of the deliberation of the Financial Action Force, the Global Forum, the EU Council of Ministers, and so on, apart from those enhancements to the bill to introduce the Financial Intelligence Unit as a supervisory agency for money laundering as it relates to casino gambling and so on. Apart from that, this bill is more or less the exact same bill that was presented and passed by the other side in 2015. I just want to look now at how serious this matter is. The Financial Action Task Force revised 40 recommendations have over which have had over 10 updates since 2012, give an overview of how dangerous our position in Trinidad and Tobago is from an anti-money laundering and counter-terrorist financing compliance perspective. In 2007, the third round mutual evaluation report stated there are 20 private members clubs registered with the Board of Inland Revenue which operate as casinos. In addition, there are 147 recreation clubs which entertain gambling on a smaller scale. There is no association of private members clubs. They are monitored by the Miscellaneous Taxes Department of the Board of Inland Revenue through field visits and audits. No AML CFT guidelines or AML CFT reporting system is in place for private members club. Now I fast forward to 2016 and quoting from the fourth round mutual evaluation report, and this is all related to FATF, private members clubs. There's a significant presence of private members clubs within the country, Trinidad and Tobago, which provide gambling activities through gaming tables and machines that are similar to casinos. The high cash turnover of these institutions, the nature of the clientele, and the non-rigorous application of AML CTF requirements are a cause for concern. And FATF went on to note, or CFATF for that matter, that some banks have refused to do business with some of these entities as a result of the perceived high risks of the industry. In fact, I'm told there may be just one local bank that has decided to do business with these private members clubs, stroke casinos. There are inadequate measures in place to prevent criminals and their associates from holding or being the beneficial owners or having a significant or controlling interest or a management function in these entities. This is a particular concern in private members clubs that provide gambling activities through gaming tables and machines that are similar to casinos. Given the significant risk for money laundering and terrorist financing by such entities, this deficiency ought to be addressed. And then, to seal the final nail in the coffin, in Trinidad and Tobago's third enhanced follow-up report in 2019, which included the gambling sector, one of the 4 recommendations still listed in that year as partially compliant. So, Madam Speaker, as I said in the other place, the opposition has filibustered on this matter for 6 years. We in this government are no longer willing to tolerate that filibustering. This is a $16 billion industry. There are no adequate controls to ensure that fit and proper persons are owners and operators of casinos. There are no adequate controls to ensure that there is proper scrutiny of potential money laundering and terrorist financing. There are no adequate controls to ensure that these entities in this $16 billion industry pay their taxes. And the time has come for this to come to an end. I also want to deal with a matter that was raised in the other place, where an opposition senator made the ludicrous statement that we should allow bars to have gaming machines such as roulette tables, and if we do not allow bars to operate, in my words, as casinos, then we'll be losing over $200 million in revenue on an annual basis. That is an absurdity. These bars that want to operate as casinos with roulette tables are currently avoiding paying their taxes, and if we get $2 million out of them, we get plenty. So the idea that if we allow bars to operate as casinos, we'll get $250 million in revenue is just an absurdity, because what was being proposed by the UNC is that we do not regulate bars that operate as casinos. Right now, bars are allowed to have up to 20 amusement machines, which are machines that have a very small payout. They're designated as amusement machines. They're not supposed to be recalibrated to operate as gambling machines, but quite often they are. And if a bar wants to have more than 20 amusement machines, then that bar is effectively turning into a casino. If a bar wants to have a roulette table and a blackjack table and various other gambling activities, then that bar will be a casino. And therefore it is absurd for persons who purport to represent that sector to say that they should not be regulated. We will continue to allow bars to operate with up to 20 amusement machines. Once that threshold is crossed, anybody who wants to engage in gambling using roulette tables and so on will have to apply to the Commission for a license to become a gambling establishment. Madam Speaker, this is now the second time I'm presenting this legislation. The bill before us has a number of clauses. Let me just get the precise number. There are 89 clauses and 4 schedules. The first part of the bill has the traditional clauses with the commencement clause, and I want to make that point, that as with other similar legislation, we will be allowing the Commission to establish itself and put all its systems in place, populate its personnel, get proper accommodation, prepare rules and regulations. We will start with that, and then at the appropriate time, sooner rather than later, the full effect of this legislation will be implemented. That is why there's a commencement clause, so that we will, after we seek and obtain the approval of this House, we will proclaim those parts of the law that allow for the establishment of the Commission and the various entities associated with the Commission, and allow the Commission to start preparing forms of licenses and rules and so on, and get the Commission up and running, and then bring all of these entities within the ambit of the Commission. But I want to stress that will be sooner rather than later. The regulations have already been prepared. That was a sticking point in the Joint Select Committee. The opposition, in its attempt to filibuster and drag this thing out until the next century, demanded that we produce detailed regulations, which we did based on consultation with expert gaming consultants that we brought in from Australia and from the United Kingdom. That was one of the benefits of the JSC. We had expert international consultants, and we were forced, because at that time the bill required a special majority, to draft regulations and then critique these regulations in the Joint Select Committee with members of the opposition, with the support of the international consultants. So we have regulations already. So that is something we can bring to this House very quickly, the regulations for the gambling industry. The objectives of the bill are set out in Clause 4. The Commission is in Part 2 of the bill, and may I say, in the UNC version of this bill, the Commission was appointed by the Minister. We have sought to change that slightly to make it appointed by the President, which in the context of the wording of the legislation will mean Cabinet, which would mean that the Minister would submit a note to Cabinet, and Cabinet will make the decision as to who should populate the Commission, who should be the members, and then that will be sent to the President in the normal way. So it's the Cabinet that will determine who would be on the Commission. In the UNC version, it was the Minister. One of the adjustments we made in the other place was on the qualifications for persons who would be members of the Commission, and I want to thank Senator Vera for that, for enhancing and improving the requirements. And this is the addition that we made. A person shall be qualified to be a member of the board where he has worked and has experience in the gaming and betting sectors. B, is an attorney at law of at least 7 years standing. C, has AML, CFT, PF experience. And D, has at least 5 years experience in accounting, finance, economics, information technology, management, social work, or law enforcement. What Senator Vera allowed us to do was to put further specifications with respect to the attorney, 7 years, the other members, accountants, and so on, 5 years experience, and also introduce the concept of somebody who has anti-money laundering, financing of terrorism, and proliferation financing experience. That was a very welcome addition, and it has improved the legislation. With respect to eligibility, that's another point that was confused by the members of the opposition in the other place. We have made it very, very clear in the legislation that a person is ineligible to be a member of the Gambling and Gaming Commission if the person has an interest in gaming and gambling, whether financial or operational interest. And let me just read it. It is in clause 5.6. A person who has operated a gambling establishment prior to the coming into force of this act, holds a license issued under this act, intends to apply for a license pursuant to the provisions of this act, or has a financial interest in but does not operate a gambling establishment shall not be eligible for appointment to the board. We had an absurd proposition in the other place where an opposition member said that you could have somebody on the board who is a competitor of somebody who wants to get a gambling license, and that person could then use their position on the board to block the other person. Absurd. Such a person would be ineligible to be a member of the Gambling Commission. The other part of the other clauses in Part 2 deal with the, as I said, the functions, which would be to regulate and control the operation of gambling, provide information to regulatory, supervisory, and government agencies. And this is one of the enhancements to the legislation since the last time we were here with this. This now allows various agencies involved in law enforcement and enforcement of various types to collaborate. So the Board of Inland Revenue, the Financial Intelligence Unit, the Integrity Commission, the Customs and Excise Division, the Commission of Police, the Police Complaints Authority, the Betting Levy Board, Financial Intelligence Branch of the police, and so on. Now there will be collaboration and communication between these agencies to allow for better enforcement and control of the operation of gambling in Trinidad and Tobago. The bill also has two funds in it, a rehabilitation fund and a development fund. The development fund is typical of the funds that we find in legislation dealing with the proceeds of gambling, such as lotteries. And the development fund will be used to finance sport and culture and community work and that sort of thing. The rehabilitation fund will be a fund set up to deal with chronic or problem gamblers and persons who are addicted to gamblers to get them off of that addiction. There are a number of licenses in the bill which are identified in Part 2. And if I can just go now and read from the bill, Madam Speaker, the various licenses. We felt that we needed to distinguish the various types of licenses that would be granted by the Commission. And these would include persons who would be applying for a gaming operator's license, which would permit the licensee to operate a gaming establishment for the purpose of conducting gaming. And that's an important point. We are not permitting internet gambling at this point in time. We are of the view that internet gambling is very complicated, and the control and enforcement of internet gambling requires a lot of consultation and a lot of expert advice. So we are limiting gambling to gambling within an establishment. We are not allowing online gambling, internet gambling. Second type of license is a betting operator's license, which shall permit the licensee to operate a betting shop. Third, a gaming owner's license, permit the licensee to own a gaming establishment, although not operating it. So you have the person who operates it will get a license, the person who owns it will get a license. Another form of license is a bookmaker's license, because these gambling activities are all different. So the bookmaker's license permits the licensee to conduct betting activities other than pool betting. A promoter's license, which will permit the licensee to stage live racing and conduct pool betting. A gaming machine operating license, which permits the licensee to sell or lease a gaming machine for use in premises approved by the Commission for the purpose including casinos, gaming lounges, and other premises licensed to conduct such activities. A gaming machine distributor license, which permits the licensee to import and supply licensed gaming machines or prescribed gaming components and equipment. A technical operator's license, which permits the licensee to install, maintain, and repair licensed gaming machines. And this is an important point, Madam Speaker, because the software that is used in these machines is very sophisticated, and persons can hack into the software, into the hardware and the software, and can corrupt the machines to the point where they would not be making the fair payouts to persons. In fact, persons would just be putting the money into these machines and getting nothing, so that the persons who would be authorized to install, maintain, and repair licensed gaming machines must come under some form of scrutiny, and that's why a technical operator's license will be required. A premises license permit the licensee to conduct activities approved by the Commission under an operating license. A personal license with respect of key employees, this again is a feature of this bill, a significant improvement on the current arrangements where it's a free-for-all and anybody could manage a casino, anybody could be a senior operative in a casino. Now, the key personnel will have to get a personal license after being subject to a fit and proper test, and that is only proper. We have casinos here owned and operated by persons from Eastern Europe and from the Far East, and there's a lot of reported irregularity in these casinos and a lot of leakage of foreign exchange, because I'm advised that because the ownership is overseas, the profits go overseas. And the US dollars, I'm told, is quite often obtained illegally to be exported. So there's a lot of leakage of foreign exchange out of these establishments. The gaming machine manufacturer license, again, that is with respect to the possibility of people tampering with the machines. And then there's a catch-all, any other license that the Commission deems appropriate. One of the enhancements to the legislation is Clause 31, that the Financial Intelligence Unit of Trinidad and Tobago shall be the supervisory authority responsible for AML, CFT, and PF supervision of gambling establishments. And this is something I was not there before, and we're bringing it in now to ensure that we maintain our compliance with the Financial Action Task Force. As I go through the rest of the legislation, Madam Speaker, standard clauses are there. The important one would be the power of the Commission under Clause 13.2 to grant, renew, suspend, review, vary, amend, revoke, or cancel licenses. Verify or cause to be verified, and this is very important, the background, character, and reputation of an applicant and any associate, because a person may be fronting for somebody else, employee, relative, or other person as it deems necessary. Direct the implementation of a computerized internal enterprise network system so that you can monitor what is going on. And require, very importantly, right now it's a free-for-all, and there's a very important function in Clause 13.2, require verification of all income on other matters relevant to the business for which a license is granted under the bill. Clause 18 gives the sources of funding for the Commission, which will include appropriations, grants, monies collected in respect of licenses, etc. Clause 20 indicates that any surplus generated by the Commission is to be paid to the consolidated fund. Clause 24. Clause 22 requires the Commission to keep proper accounts. Clause 23 provides for parliamentary scrutiny and requires the Commission to prepare an annual report laid before Parliament. As we continue, we get to Part 3, licensing regime, and as I just indicated, there are a number of different licenses which will now be required. And to answer another silly point made in the other place by the opposition, these licenses all go to unique people. There's not one person who will need to get 11 licenses. Because of the different types of activities, machine manufacturers, machine repair, gaming owner, gaming establishment operator, these licenses are all unique to different people. It's not 11 licenses going to one person. As we move along now, the question of AML CFT compliance, the licensing regime is extremely robust. It is subject to the provision of in-depth information by applicants, inclusive of a completed anti-money laundering risk assessment questionnaire, and it's also subject to public scrutiny, as notice of the application for a license must be published by the Commission in at least 2 daily newspapers, inviting the public to comment, and persons can object, residents, teachers, religious groups, etc., who become aware of the intention of someone to apply for a license, they can object. And it also requires a fit and proper test. It also allows the police commissioner to make inquiries with respect to the background of applicants and to provide information to the commission. The other clauses are technical clauses that deal with the variation of licenses, the expiration and renewal of licenses, and so on. Clauses 44 and 45 establish a review mechanism for licenses granted by the Commission, and this is typical with the rules. This is consistent with the rules of natural justice, so that a person will be notified of procedures to be observed during a review, provided with the opportunity to make representations, all these natural justice provisions. Clause 46 provides a procedure for the revocation of licenses. 47 obliges licensees to notify the Commission of any change in circumstances. And Clause 50 provides for the appeal of any decision of the Commission to the High Court. Clause 51 provides for a register that is public and private. It provides the name of the licensee, a list of every gaming machine and gambling device granted under license, the address of every premises. All of this will be in a public register. A far cry from what happens now. We don't have a clue as to the gaming machines and gambling devices. People move them around. As the inspectors come, they take them out and they hide them, and then when the inspector goes away, they put them back. Now it will be a requirement and an offense if you do not indicate every single gaming device and gambling device in your establishment in a public register. As we go now into the latter clauses of the bill, Madam Speaker, Part 4 deals with gaming shops, betting shops, and so on. Clause 53 provides for a transitional period where we amended that in the Senate to allow that transitional period to be extended in the same way we have done with other legislation by order of the minister, if that is warranted. Clause 56, very important, gives the Commission the authority to designate machines as either amusement machines or gaming machines. As I indicated previously, an amusement machine has a very small payout. It's really for recreation. A gambling machine is serious business. The Clause 63 gives the taxation on the various types of machines and devices, baccarat table, blackjack table, stud poker, dice table, roulette table, electronic roulette device, etc., etc. As we move towards the end of the bill, we have the establishment of the Rehabilitation Fund and the Development Fund in Clause 64, which are to ensure that the economic output of gambling will be directed in a purposeful and socially beneficial manner. As we come along now to the key part of the bill, how much more minutes do I have, Madam Speaker?
You have roughly 1 minute.
1 minute, good. In Part 7, We have the enforcement provisions, and in this part, we are introducing the concept of an enforcement officer who will be a police officer, and that is how we have done away with the special majority requirements. Madam Speaker, we are satisfied that this bill will do what it is supposed to do. It will regulate the practice of gambling in Trinidad and Tobago. It will ensure the government gets the revenue it is supposed to get. Right now, if we get 50 million, as I said in the other place, we get plenty. We should be getting 500 million because this is a $16 billion industry. So we are satisfied that this bill, which is a simple majority bill, will now allow Trinidad and Tobago to take its place in the world with a properly regulated gambling sector, and that the current completely unacceptable situation will be a thing of the past. I beg to move.